KTWA News Special Edition.
Protests continue in cities across the country for another day. Millions calling for change and justice. All this following the death of George Floyd, who died while in police custody in Minneapolis on Memorial Day. As protesters marched, Floyd's family and friends gathered for a memorial service today in North Carolina.
I'll never hear his laughter. I'll never have his hugs. I'll be able to tell him that I love him again, and likewise him tell me the same.
And here's a live look now here in Portland. Storms are not deterring people from having their message heard. And so far, things have been peaceful, but we'll see what tonight brings.
That was the scene last night. After hours of peaceful demonstrations, we saw chaos once again. Portland police using tear gas to help break up the crowd. It's a move Mayor Ted Wheeler is speaking out on today. Good evening and thanks for being here with us. I'm Brittany Folkers, joined by Kristen Severance in the newsroom.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover tonight, but first we want to get right to Morgan Romero, who talked to someone who was in the middle of the crowd last night.
First, I want to address the large crowd that's gathered in Chapman Square. We've seen a couple hundred people trickle in here tonight, and more people are starting to come down here. I talked to a man, Randy Blazak, who's a criminology and sociology professor who was in this very spot last night. He studies the exact things that we're seeing unfolding in our country right now. So he and his wife decided to come down here late last night and see firsthand for themselves what was going on. He recorded the whole thing on his cell phone as he tried to stay back and observe, and then he got tear gassed.
And then a little bit after 11, some tension erupted between some of the frontline protesters and the police, and it appeared that there were some water bottles being thrown over the fence.
Videos from Multnomah County Sheriff's Office show some of what was thrown over the fence at law enforcement Friday night. As Randy Blazak recounts, police announced the protests had turned into an unlawful assembly and ordered people to leave or force may be used.
And then the flashbangs started, and people began leaving. In the middle of this are these tear gas canisters are being shot into the crowd, at least near us.
Documenting it all, Randy says people split off to different areas and then many returned to the Justice Center around midnight. Police again ordered people to leave.
And then here we are a couple blocks away, but there's no people at all, and we're just here. And I'm wanting to record the police kind of right over my head. A tear gas canister lands behind me, and I start breathing the tear gas. And it just sort of comes on you in a wave, and then all of a sudden I was on my hands and knees coughing.
The sheriff's office, who was working alongside Portland police, says their goal was to protect the Justice Center and the people inside. Tear gas is a last resort, but MCSO says they used it after protesters kept throwing objects and tried tearing the fence down around the building. As an expert on policing, Blazak says tear gas works to get rid of a crowd, but it also works against law enforcement in the long term.
When you use a noxious agent like that, you anger people. You bring people into the fight. People who see it as an injustice are now going to be showing up at these rallies thinking, you know, all cops are the bad guys.
We mentioned earlier, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler released a statement earlier today about the use of tear gas to manage crowds during protests. Wheeler said that he told Portland Police Chief that it should not be used unless there is a, quote, serious and immediate threat to life safety, and there is no other viable alternative for dispersal. He said city leaders know that this is a pressing and urgent issue, and they'll work together over the next few days to come up with an action plan that addresses the community's demands. Kristen?
All right, Morgan, thanks so much. You know, Mayor Wheeler had come under increasing pressure to stop using tear gas or CS gas. So Portland police said that CS gas, that's what they use. It's the powdered form of tear gas. Now, they say it's easier to escape and the effects wear off sooner. But protesters, along with the organization Don't Shoot Portland, they're not convinced. They filed a class action lawsuit against the city demanding that they stop using CS gas. Workers from OHSU, they were also protesting yesterday. Now, the hospital spoke out against using tear gas, saying the chemicals and other irritants, it makes people cough, and that could make the coronavirus spread more quickly. Seattle's Mayor Jenny Durkan has temporarily banned police from using it at protests. And as the protests continue there too, the mayor said today the ban is for 30 days. Now this comes after urging in Seattle from 3 civilian police watchdog groups. And Brittany, I know some protesters were hoping that Mayor Wheeler would follow Seattle's lead and ban tear gas or CS gas for 30 days here. But as Morgan said, he did not do that. Instead, he said police will only use tear gas when lives are in danger.
A story we will continue to follow. Thanks so much, Kristen.
You bet.
And the fight against racism continues in our local streets today, including a peaceful event that drew thousands in Vancouver. And we are seeing those protests continue tonight. Art Edwards joins us from Southeast Portland with what's happening there and more on the car rally for Black Lives. Art.
Yes, that's right. I'm outside of Revolution Hall in Southeast Portland, Southeast Stark, at about 12. The people who are here have gathered and moved into the street right now, where they are getting ready to assemble and begin a march throughout the city of Portland. Several hundred people have gathered here to show their support. Now, earlier today, this isn't the only event. As we told you, the Vancouver NAACP put together a way for people to demonstrate, show their support, and keep up social distancing. Cars packed the Town Center Plaza in Vancouver. More than 1,500 cars, about 3,000 people registered in advance.
This was birthed out of the need to keep people safe, keep people healthy, but let people express.
Jasmine Tolbert is one of the organizers. She and a legion of volunteers kept this event on track. They used an FM transmitter.
We are all about eliminating racism and empowering the voices that have been silenced and taken away from us.
So people attending could hear speakers in their cars.
Do not lose hope. This is the time to find hope and to have hope.
For the people attending, this was something they felt they had to do on this Saturday.
There are really critical, important issues going on with everything that happened to George Floyd and everybody else. We need to raise more public awareness of what's really going on and has been going on for a long time.
The cars drove from the Town Center Plaza on Mill Plain to the Port of Vancouver, Terminal 1. An amazing display of unity in Vancouver.
It's so impressive that so many people showed up, and it shows that people in Vancouver can stand together and fight for something that's so important and has needed to be fought for years and years and years.
This day made Jasmine Tolbert proud of her community.
I am very happy to see that Clark County showed up for the right reasons. This is about equity, this is about justice, and this is also about peace.
Well, that was an event that was very successful over in Vancouver today, using the automobiles to be able to keep people and their social distancing. Back here out in Southeast Portland, what you see is a lot of people have gathered here at Revolution Hall. This has been a gathering point for a number of the protests and marches that have gone on. Looks like they're going to get going, marching in the next few minutes, possibly going west on Stark Street, and then we'll kind of see where they go from there. It's been a little bit up in the air as to what their final destination has been and what the route they're going to take. So we'll be keeping an eye on this and let you know how this one goes. Back to you.
All right, Art, thank you. We'll definitely check back in with you later on tonight. A big crowd also turned out in Salem today. The Salem Reporter called it the largest gathering seen so far in Salem. Thousands are said to have participated in the event at the Capitol, which featured hours of protest, speeches, and a march.
Still ahead, tackling racism in our schools. We check in with local districts to see how they're standing up to injustice and making change in the classroom. Plus, Black communities are seeing higher death rates and hospitalizations in the coronavirus pandemic. We'll show you how a nonprofit is making testing more accessible.
Nourishing Neighbors funding program.
all over are responding in different ways to the protests and outcry for change. We heard this week that schools in Portland will no longer have school resource officers on campus. Portland Public Schools planning to dedicate more resources to promote social justice and racial equity. Christine Pitawanich checked in with a couple of Oregon's other larger school districts to see how they're tackling the issue of systemic racism.
Our nation is consumed by a racist fire. It hurts to see the cities lit ablaze as I scroll through my phone. It hurts to see that my son is oblivious unto the world he is born, the world that we must prepare him for. It hurts because our most precious members, our children, don't deserve a world like this.
In the Salem-Keizer School District, McKay High's assistant principal read his heartfelt poem to his colleagues. Hard conversations are being had here and everywhere.
And I still want to have some important conversations about race today.
Superintendent Christy Perry has made it clear she won't stay silent about racism.
It's a moral imperative that I speak up, because then I give permission to our 4,000 educators across the district to take action. And I give them permission for that.
She addressed the issue in a couple of the district's last meetings before summer break.
One either allows racial inequities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist.
She put out a call to action.
But collective action is what can change the world.
To the roughly 3,000 people throughout the district who tuned into her video chat.
This week, the question was, what action will you take to be an anti-racist?
Here's some things, words that I got in my inbox.
Over in the Beaverton School District, leadership there also pushing for change.
But I think it's the time, and we really need to step up to the plate.
Superintendent Don Grotting says he hears his families of color, the district, one where 52% are minorities. But that diversity isn't reflected in district staff, and Grotting knows it.
And in no ways do we have representation of staff of color.
He's made a commitment to change that in hiring practices moving forward. He says the district will also work on figuring out ways to remove barriers for students of color and support them.
I just hope we don't miss this opportunity. This is this may be a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we can't afford to miss it for the future of our children.
Our children don't deserve a world like this. But out of the embers of fire, flickers of hope flash momentarily.
Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
It's good to get a little more. And with Xfinity, you get more from your internet, like advanced security for all your devices, plus an Xfinity
now to the coronavirus and a spike in cases here in Oregon. This chart behind me shows the number of new cases each day since March. Today, there were 93 cases reported. It's the second day in a row the Oregon Health Authority has reported over 90 cases. We haven't seen daily numbers like this since March. Doctors say the higher numbers are tied to several factors, including more widespread testing and contact tracing, as well as workplace outbreaks. To date, there have been 4,662 cases in Oregon. Marion and Multnomah counties have each broken the 1,000 case mark, and 163 people have died from COVID-19 here in the state.
A Portland nonprofit is stepping up to help the Black community, which has been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Christelle Coonway reports.
At first glance, it may look like any other COVID-19 testing site, but organizers say it's a first.
I don't know that there's been another testing site that we're testing anyone without symptoms first. Secondly, there's not been a culturally specific testing site that I'm aware of anywhere in Oregon.
Tony Hobson is the president of Self Enhancement, Inc., a Portland nonprofit serving the Black community. Saturday, the organization provided free coronavirus testing.
We realize that COVID has been disproportionately impacting Black people in our community, and we've seen that all across the country. So we wanted to push to make sure that Black people in our local community had the opportunity to get tested.
Hobson says SEI had to put some pressure on state and local leaders in order to make the testings happen.
We've had the ability to get to the powers to be, in this case the governor and the chair of Multnomah County, to have those conversations. They heard us and they stepped forward, and at this point we're glad to at least be at this point.
People who stopped by to get tested were also glad to have the opportunity. Jackie Murphy says she tried to get a COVID test before, but was turned away because her symptoms were mild.
To know that this was such an available resource that we could just come get tested without any question, without having to have all the symptoms, and especially because we know that COVID is impacting Black and brown communities different than any other community, we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. We were thankful that SEI and the county put it together.
300 people signed up to get tested Saturday, and results are expected within the next few days. Mr. Hobson says the nonprofit hopes to host many more of these testings in the community, and when they do, the information about location, dates, and time will be on their website, selfenhancement.org. In North Portland, Christelle Coonway, KGW News.
Now, every county in Oregon except Multnomah County is at least in Phase 1. Governor Kate Brown gave the green light for 29 Oregon counties to enter the second phase over the next few days. Now, under Phase 2, restaurants and bars can stay open until midnight. Groups gathering limits have also increased. Venues like churches and theaters can hold up to 250 people. Recreational sports can resume, and people are allowed to return to their workplaces. Oregon state health officials say counties in Phase 2 will likely stay there for several months and probably into the fall. Counties can only enter the third phase when there is a reliable COVID-19 treatment or a vaccine. As for Multnomah County, leaders applied for Phase 1 yesterday, and they hope to begin reopening next Friday. That's June 12th.
In Washington County, Clark County is also moving into Phase 2 of the state's reopening plan. It takes effect immediately, and the county can apply to enter Phase 3 in 3 weeks. Phase 2 in Clark County was delayed for a bit because of an outbreak at a Vancouver packing plant. We'll be right back.
Permanent and temp positions available now. Apply today with dental and medical staffing.
Here's to the road ahead. Trust Toyota to be here for you.
The best new cars
Welcome back, everyone. First, we want to let you know we're having some technical issues with our weather forecast right now. So to get the latest on that, you can find more weather details at kgw.com. But we turn our focus again to the protests, the 9th day of protests here in Portland. And it looks like a march getting underway in southeast Portland right now.
Yeah, let's send things over right now to Art Edwards, who's monitoring the situation. So Art, the last time we talked to you, there wasn't much activity, and now we can see some people on the move behind you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, for about the last 15 minutes or so, people have been marching. They started out at Revolution Hall, which is on Stark, and about 12th and 13th. They were in the street there, started at that point. Now you can see they have moved west on Stark. We're standing at Stark and 11th, and this has been going for about the last 15 minutes is where it started, and we still see people who are marching in the street. This is a rather large gathering of people. Throughout this time, they've been chanting. They're carrying their signs for Black Lives Matter. They're going to be walking at least down, it looks like, maybe over to Grand Avenue, something like that. It's not exactly clear where they're going to go. At some point, we do know that they're saying that they're going to cross over to the west side of the river. So at this point, everything's moving along fine. A lot of people, so it's taking a long time for them to get through this area, and they're doing as much chanting and sign waving as they possibly can as they make their way through this part of southeast Portland. So again, starting at Revolution Hall and making their way west on southeast Stark Street at this point. Back to you.
All right, Art, thank you. And let's take a live look, if we can, from our Sky 8 view. As you can see, protesters on the move, continuing to march. And Kristen, as we've been continuing our community conversations, there is a heavy reminder from city leaders, Black community leaders, to remind people this follows the death of George Floyd that happened on Memorial Day, just a little bit over a week ago. But this is about hundreds of years of systemic racism and finding real solutions to that systemic racism, to police brutality, to the disproportionate effects that people of color have in our communities throughout this country and here in Portland. Strong conversations that I'm sure are continuing to happen right there on the ground before our eyes.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, you know, we've heard from a lot of Black leaders this week saying things need to change. Talking is great, having the conversation is a start, but things need to change, and that's why we've seen thousands and thousands of protesters here every single night calling for changes. We'll continue to monitor things here on air and online, and Brittany and I will be back here at 11 o'clock.